I'm Brian, this is Watch Complications. Thanks for joining me. This is an entry in my Making Custom Watches series, so I hope you enjoy it. I was asked a few weeks ago if I would go over some of the tools that I use in my making of custom watches, so I'm going to do that. And in fact, since now we're going to talk about all these different tools, I'll put a few links. I'm not going to link to everything individually that I talk about in terms of the tools that I generally use to do my work, but I'll put some sort of maybe top level domain information for some of the sites that I use more commonly. So you'll find some links and things in the description below, so be sure to check that out. If you haven't subscribed, why not? What's keeping you from it? Do it. It's the right thing to do. And you can also follow me on Instagram at watch_complications, but importantly, just check out the blog, watchcomplications.com.
Okay, I am not going to take forever to go through all these tools, but I'm going to give you the main ones you would need to work with when making custom watches. Let's talk about some aesthetics first. So you've seen the desk lamps I have, so you need some sort of good LED lamps. Again, I'll put links to those in the description. I buy a lot of this sort of other stuff off Amazon. What I have underneath of this whole setup is I have a large cork board, actually, that I bought. This is something you'd usually hang on the wall, but I like the feel of cork. You can poke things into it. And then I have this pad on top of it. And this is, you can get, an expensive Bergeon pad. Usually they're green because they help with your eyes and stuff. This is a sort of semi-cushioned pad meant for like the bottom of a shelf. But I found these really nice to have underneath of my, work that I'm doing. So that's one thing. Another thing is, you're going to work on watches. You need patience, music, and time. And what I mean by time is large chunks of time with which to tinker and play and experiment and those sort of things. But again, patience and music. Who doesn't love working with some nice, relaxing music in the background? Come on. For me, usually that's jazz. Anyway, if you're going to open or close a watch case, you need a case tool. Lots of these different ones out there. This is just a sort of a lower end one. It does matter quality of tools. You can buy, a cheap set of screwdrivers, for example. This is a Craftsman, low cost set of, it's like $7 of some small screwdrivers. But that's a whole different ball game when you want to talk about quality. One thing I've noticed as I got into this as a hobby initially, but now is much more, is that you really don't want to skimp on tools. Buy the right tools for the job. And yeah, many times it is worth going for that higher costs, Swiss made tool for this work if you're going to be doing it a lot. If you're just playing around and it truly is a hobby, then fine, go with the cheap stuff. But if you want to do the work well, the right tools and the right brands will help you. Okay, so first need a case tool. These tips unscrew from here and you can put different tips. Some are round, some are squares, some are, different shapes depending on the case that you're trying to open. Distances being different depending on the case. So case tool, screwdriver set. I just showed you that. This is the one. This is the Bergeon 5970, and this has all the different sizes, color coded. It's wonderful. Again, you can go with low-end screwdriver set, but you know what? This has been one of the best mini investments I've ever made in making custom watches. You've got the sizes. These are durable. These things are going to last. They come with other tips. It's a nice rotating carousel. Yeah, you need something like that if you want to get into custom watches. The saving grace of the watch world, Rodico. It's basically like a green. It makes you think of like silly putty almost, but a little bit more robust than that, obviously. But this is for anything from picking up lint to absorbing oil to helping you clean out the inside or off the outside of cases. I mean, this is for holding stuff like a hand while it's drying after looming it. This is for everything. You need to have this in your box. Dial holder. These things are awesome. This is sort of just a cheap holder, but that's all you really need. Here's what it is. This is because dial feet on the back of dials, depending on what you're working with, are in all sorts of locations. You can see the 2 dial feet there. So different dials, they're all over the place depending on what movement they're meant for, and this kind of gives you all sorts of combinations. Obviously, hold about any dial. Some dials, now like on these, are a little bit too big to go into the holes on this particular one, so you might need you know, something else to hold certain dials still, but these are great for working on most watches. So a dial holder, and sort of also along that line, I've got stuff on this right now. These are some of those cushions slash spacer rings. This is a dial slash watch cushion. This sort of has a non-stick pad on the bottom. And you can buy expensive ones of these. You can buy cheaper ones. This is a cheaper one. It's kind of got a faux leather on it, but it's a slightly cushioned surface for which you can put, you know, dials or movements or other parts and things on temporarily or while you're working on them a little bit. So a pad like that is nice to have around. Movement holders. These come in sort of all sorts of, you know, shapes and sizes. These are made for specific movements. Like this is meant to hold something that's in the ETA 2800 or the Soletta 200 series. And then you've got sort of other, again, sort of higher end, higher cost versions. This is a Bergeon 4040p. Either side will hold different types of movements because these are cut certain ways, certain angles to hold different types of movements. These course get larger and smaller as you turn that. So there's movement holders like that. I've got another sort of lower cost one. This one turns 4 different ways to hold different types of movements. And then you might see some really cheaper ones like this, a little bit bigger, but you can move, you know, these tips around. These are, you know, a little bit softer, not too harsh on dials and, you know, parts and stuff like that. So these sort of clamp style movements or round ones like this are nice to have. And then you might see there are holders like this too that are just sort of concave circles at different sizes so that the movement will kind of sit down in there and you can put pressure on it and work on it and stuff like that, and different sizes for different movements. So it's like a set of 12. So yeah, there's all kinds of dial and movement holders out there. Again, it's sort of useful to have an array of those if you're gonna be working on watches. You need a nice tweezer set, different shapes. These are the 2 most used I have, these 2 particular designs. You know, when it comes to tweezers, you can buy all kinds of tweezers and stuff, but you know what? There's lots of tweezers for the fashion industry that work just as well. You just want to buy a good set. You don't want them to be, you know, magnetized or anything, but just get yourself a nice tweezer set. Don't get by with just one pair of tweezers. You need some variety. It's all about having a variety so you can, you know, respond to various situations. You can buy sets that are less likely to get magnetized. There's so many electronic fields around. Like right now, I've got my phone sitting above this workbench. If you set your mechanical watch on a mobile phone, it's going to get magnetized. In which case, you need a demagnetizer. So if, for example, tweezers sometimes get magnetized, you plug this thing in, you hold down the button, it's got magnets and stuff in there. You basically, you know, push this against the surface and then you kind of slowly remove it. It will, of course, mix up the magnetic field and demagnetize this. And you sometimes have to demagnetize watches. So if you're going to have tweezers and if you're going to be working on mechanical watches, having a demagnetizer is another essential tool to kind of have around. Sometimes people's watches are way off. All it is it's gotten magnetized. It got set on a computer or it's been around a phone a little bit too closely for too long. And all you got to do is demagnetize it and it'll work again just fine. Those hair springs are easy to magnetize. All right, hand pusher. You've seen me use this in some different videos. Maybe if you've watched some of my other, you know, videos, different tips, these things pop in and out. This has been a really useful tool. This is not one of the more expensive one, but there's locations in here to hold onto these. I put them inside of an old movement case. But this pushes down. Basically, you'll have your movement on a movement holder. Underneath of this, you get the hands on there, the pins with Rodico or tweezers, and then once you have it down, you push the hands on. So having a hand pusher like that is sort of essential. I also like using these on these bigger watch movements like this. Just a hand pusher that's you using your hand, not just a stand, is also useful. Of course, these come in different sizes depending on what the hands are. This is meant for the 64, 97, 98 series. So it's size 1.5 on one end and 2 on the other. So 2 different sizes. And there's a whole, you can get the whole set of this. Another company that makes this sort of lower cost, but still reasonable quality is Horotech. The other hand pusher was also the Horotech version, not the Bergeon version. So different types of hand pushers out there. Need those. Also sort of in that hand tool category are removers. So these are tools that you would use to remove the hands from a watch. Obviously, you want to protect the dial. So you might have a dial protector like this. You slide between the hands and the dial that rests, and then you can use these little levers. You can see how they're kind of curved up so as not to, distress the dial in any particular sharp way. But these will go underneath the hands, and then you leverage up and hands pop right off. Here's another type of hand removal tool. So this little post moves, so you push that down, and then as you pull on the hands, it pulls them up. I don't like these that much. They're kind of almost gimmicky to a certain extent. And these have the potential for damaging a little bit more than some of the other methods. You can see there's the gaps there and pulls them up. So that's another style, but not a particularly huge fan of that one. So hand removers, hand pushers, dial protector, other types of tools you need. Pegwood is useful. You see me use toothpicks sometimes in videos as well, but this is just non-abrasive. So if you're helping slide things around, move things around, this won't scratch unless you push really hard, I guess. You can also put things on it, use Rodico in combination with this to hold things. But pegwood is a common tool you'll find on a watchmaker's bench. X-Acto knife for when you need to cut things very finely. I use this to do things like cutting the adhesive paper around my logos, and again, sort of sliding underneath of something if I need to very carefully. I use it to help with fine trimming on my 3D printed parts, like these cushions / spacer rings if I need to clean up things on them. So having an X-Acto knife around is fun. Finger cuts. Sometimes people complain to me because when I'm tinkering with prototypes, I don't wear finger cuts all the time, particularly for what I'm showing you. But when I'm working on, really important stuff or things that I really care about, high-end stuff for clients, I will put finger cuts on. I also use just full-on gloves sometimes also. So having some sort of hand protection. Human oils on watch parts is a bad thing. Things will start to corrode quicker over time if you have human oil from those nasty, sweaty hands of yours on watch parts, anything metal really. So some sort of finger / hand protection is essential. There, I said it. It's essential for working on watches. Having a time grapher. You want to know what the amplitude is, beat error, what the beat rate is of your watch. You want to see if you're gaining, losing, how many seconds a day. You need a time grapher. You can see I bought mine from Auto Fry. That's one of the main places I buy watch parts for different projects. That and Esslinger are the two in the US, the two main sort of distributors for some random watch parts. You can always use other things like eBay. All these tools you can also find on Amazon, that sort of stuff. You need an air blower. I'm going to call it that. There's a formal name for it, but I just call it an air blower. So this is really when you want to clean things. You've seen me use it basically to blow lint and debris away from a movement or off a dial, basically to clean and keep your workspace clean. So you need one of these. Calipers. You got to have calipers. You want to measure things. You can buy a nice digital set for not that much money, and these things are necessary. Of course, you're going to have things in millimeters in terms of working on watches, but you want to do things like measuring to cut a stem. You want to see what the lug width is on something. So many things you need to measure and do if you are making custom stuff, which of course I do on a regular basis, and a nice set of digital calipers is necessary. Of course, it's got the depth on this side, but this is what you use all the time. Gotta have a set. Gotta have a set. Let me turn that off and lock it down. So calipers, those things are necessary for measuring all these small little things. You also need a stem cutter if you're going to be making watches. Nice hardened steel. No, most other types of metal cutters aren't going to be that great for it. These are specifically designed for cutting watch stems. So some sort of stem cutter, because when you buy random movements, off the shelf, depending on the case, a lot of times the stems are longer than what you need for a watch, and you're going to need to cut it. That's just the reality. eye magnification. I'll put the links to some of this stuff, like I said, in the thing. But you've not seen me wear this, but this is my favorite sort of magnification headband. There are different lenses that pop in and off at the end of this. This has an LED light on the front as well. I don't really use that because the batteries would make this a lot heavier. They go in behind here, this little surface here, but it's padded on the front. It's got an elastic band for the back. There's also just regular earpieces, but I like the elastic band. The nose piece, you can have, I have glasses. If you haven't noticed in my videos, I wear glasses, and these sit out far enough from your face that you can wear your regular glasses, and then you have this on top, so it doesn't interfere with your glasses. And this nose piece slides in nicely behind the nose piece on your glasses. These are really great for those who wear glasses. Then you've got sort of your more traditional, you know, eye loops. And you need a 4 and a 10. Those are your most common magnifications for watchmaking, but there's all kinds of sets out there. But this is a Bausch & Lomb. This is the 4. I also have a 10 for different, you know, if I want to really look up close at something. This is for my general work. If I want to get really detailed and look at things up close, then I'm going to use a sort of more traditional eye loop. Did I mention cleaning claws? You need lots of cleaning claws. So a strap or bracelet tool, there's no question, there's one tool to get for that, and that is the Bergeon version of this. This is a 6767. It comes with both an S and an F tip. Get one of each. I typically use the F tip for almost everything, including straps. It's because it's a little bit smaller, but this is the tool you need. It's got a solid end on one side for pushing links and things like that out, but this is what you need for removing a strap. You've seen me do that in some other videos, or if you haven't seen it, go watch some of my other videos, and you'll see me using this tool all the time. There are cheaper versions of this stuff you get with, like, when you buy watches and stuff sometimes, and they just aren't near the quality. They might get you by, but they're not great in terms of the machining, the quality. They're just not as good. They're believe it or not, as simple as this tool is, there is a massive difference between working with this tool and working with the cheap stuff. Trust me on that. I wouldn't steer you wrong. Something else to have around are things like link removal tools. This is to help remove links on bracelets. You set the bracelet across this, and then you put this where the pin goes, and you screw that in and then unscrew it and pop the pin out, that sort of thing. Yeah, this will help with straps and stuff, but if you're going to remove links on bracelets and resize them, then you need a proper link removal tool / kit. Getting there, the desk lamps, you've seen these. Obviously, I have some storage for all my different parts, different hands, different tools, oils, etc., etc. So some sort of storage for all the parts, for keeping track of little parts. This is a paint tray. This is a great little solution to having like little wells. You can use this for oil, use this for all kinds of different parts and stuff, keeping things separate. This is a paint tray I bought for like 50 cents at, you know, like a dollar store or something like that. So having stuff like this around, awesome. So let me show you a little bit more about my setup here in terms of the aesthetics. You need a comfortable spot. This is what's called a pub table. So this thing sits really high. And so whenever I'm in a chair, whether it's adjustable or not, this thing is going to sit up higher where I can have my elbows on the table and be looking at the work I'm doing on the table, sort of at head level. That's what's important. You don't want to be bending over for hours on end working on a bench. You want to be sitting where this table is like your chin is and arms can rest on this thing comfortably, where you're looking more ahead and forward, more so than bent and hunched over down. Your back will kill you after a couple of days or so if you are hunched over all the time. Sitting up high on a regular height table. You need a high table or a chair that goes really low so you can sit comfortably at a desk. One of the other useful tools that I've come across, this is a crystal tester, because I have my low cost series, and you know there's a lot of ads out there that say sapphire and the watches aren't sapphire, but having this, the diamond selector too, will help you determine for certainty if a crystal, whether it's the crystal on the front or on an exhibition case back, is actually sapphire or not. You've seen me maybe use that in one of my other videos. So having a crystal tester is another good tool. Of course, having some pliers around is a good idea. I use pliers with, you know, grips on them once in a while to help hold on, particularly when I'm cutting stems and stuff. But having a set that's also flat that doesn't have any teeth is a good idea. So you can pinch and hold on to things without damaging them. Once in a while, you might need one that has teeth, but these are good to have around, something with sort of flat pliers, Those are handy. All right, and, other things that are sort of, depending on just, complexity of the things you're building, there's a Loom Kit. Again, don't skip on things like Loom. This is the Bergeon Loom Kit that I used for my dual time watch, the videos where I hand applied all of this stuff. Having a Loom Kit around is good. There's all kinds of oils and applicators you can get for when you're doing maintenance. So having oil wells. This is adhesive for holding crystals in place. You've got different types of oil for different locations on the watch movement. So if you're going to do maintenance on watches, you need that kind of stuff. So for this next thing, this is the same case that I used on the dual time watch. You can see that the bezel here is polished, and so is the case back. If you want to take something that's polished, whether it's something on a case, a crown, a bracelet, and you want to give it a brush look, all you need is some inexpensive Scotch-Brite pad. This one I've cut down a little bit, and then I use to scrape smaller parts. But having just regular old green Scotch-Brite will help you change polished surfaces to brushed surfaces quickly and easily. I think the last thing I want to show you in this video anyway is a set of really small files. These have different angles and different shapes depending on what you're wanting to file. Having a small set of files for doing different things to different metal parts is very helpful to have around. This is more if you're getting into like custom watchmaking, doing custom stuff on dials, that sort of thing. Something else that's helpful to have around is a gram scale. This goes up to 100 grams, so it's pretty fine in terms of the detail, and that's handy to have around. Oh, and I should mention that you need some stationery. Okay, well, that's the main stuff I want to show you, but those are the main things I have on my workbench to help me get my watch work done.
Again, as always, thank you to all my subscribers. I'm really glad that people are finding this entertaining, informational, and I love sharing and tinkering with watches. So thanks again so much for everyone being around. I'm Brian. This is Watch Complications.